A loud crash woke him in the middle of the night. His house's roof was pierced clean through. On the floor lay a red-hot stone the size of a fist. A coffin maker from a small village in Indonesia didn't know he had just found the rarest meteorite worth nearly $2 million. He didn't know this discovery would destroy his life, that relatives would turn into enemies, that neighbors would sue him, that he would have to flee his native village, hiding under a false name to stay alive. It all began that August night. That August 8th. Chapter 1. The Falling Stone. Joshua Hudagalang woke to a deafening roar at 3 a.m. The house shook. The sound of breaking boards filled the air, and something heavy struck the floor with force in the next room. His heart pounded wildly. Earthquake? Roof collapse? He jumped out of bed, grabbed a flashlight, and rushed towards the source of the noise. His wife screamed something frightened. Children cried in the adjacent bedroom. In the living room, he saw an incredible sight. A hole the size of a basketball gaped in the ceiling, through which stars shone. Fragments of tiles and wood chips were scattered throughout the room, and in the middle of the floor, in a small depression from the impact, lay a dark stone emitting steam. Joshua carefully approached. The stone was roughly the size of a large grapefruit, weighed about 2 kilograms, its surface covered with a strange black crust, charred in places. It was still hot to the touch. Joshua worked as a coffin maker in a small village in Sumatra, earned about $100 a month, barely made ends meet. He had 3 children, an old house that constantly needed repairs, and a pile of debts. Now there was also a hole in the roof. He didn't know what to do with this stone. Throw it away, keep it. Neighbors were already running to the noise, peering through windows, shouting questions. What happened? An explosion? An accident? Joshua carried the stone into the yard, placed it on the ground to cool. By morning, the entire village knew about the strange incident. Someone suggested it was a meteorite. The village elder said it was a sign from above that the heavens had chosen Joshua's house for something important. Others laughed. So what? Just an ordinary stone that fell from somewhere? Joshua photographed the find on his old phone and posted it in a local social media group, asking what it could be. There were many responses, but one caught his attention. A person identifying himself as a geologist from Jakarta wrote, "This could be a meteorite, very rare. Don't sell to the first person you meet. Show it to experts. This could be worth money, a lot of money." Joshua didn't believe it. How could some stone be worth money? But curiosity got the better of him. Chapter 2, Appraisal and Shock. 2 days later, a specialist from the university in Medan came to Joshua. An elderly professor in glasses carefully examined the stone, conducted several tests right on the spot, checked magnetic properties, density, structure. His hands trembled with excitement. "This is a carbonaceous chondrite," he whispered, "the rarest type of meteorite. Only a few dozen have been found in the world, age about 4.5 billion years. Older than Earth. This is an incredible find. How much could this be worth?" asked Joshua, feeling his throat tighten. The professor pondered. "On the black market, collectors are willing to pay insane money, from $500,000 to $2 million, maybe more, depends on who buys it." Joshua nearly fell over. $2 million for a stone? This was more than he could earn in a lifetime. This was money he had never even dreamed of. The news spread instantly. First, a note appeared in local media. Coffin maker finds meteorite worth millions of dollars. And then national channels picked it up. Within a week, all of Indonesia was talking about Joshua. Journalists began arriving at his house, filming reports. Neighbors crowded at the gate, peered over the fence, children pointed fingers, and then collectors started arriving. The first was an Indonesian from Jakarta who offered $300,000 cash right now. Joshua was confused, didn't know what to answer. The professor advised not to rush, to wait for better offers. A few days later, an American collector appeared, contacted via email, introduced himself as a meteorite specialist who worked with the world's largest museums. His offer was staggering, $1,800,000. Joshua couldn't breathe. Almost $2 million. for a stone that fell on his roof. This was fate. This was a chance to change everything. Escape poverty, give his children an education, buy a proper house, help relatives. He agreed. The deal was finalized within a week. The money arrived in his account. Joshua became a millionaire. The whole village rejoiced. They congratulated him, hugged him, called him lucky, local hero, the man who got lucky. But happiness didn't last long, very short. Chapter 3. The nightmare begins. Relatives came first. Distant aunts, uncles, cousins whom Joshua hadn't seen in years suddenly appeared at his doorstep with broad smiles and requests. We need help. Your family. You're rich now, share. At first he helped, gave money for an aunt's treatment, paid for a nephew's education, helped a brother pay off debt, but the requests didn't stop. They multiplied. Every day, new people came. Someone wanted money for a new motorcycle, someone for a wedding, someone just because he was rich and they weren't. When Joshua began refusing, the atmosphere changed. He's become arrogant, forgot where he came from, greedy. We helped him before and now he turns away. Then came the demands, aggressive, insistent. One cousin showed up with a group of friends, banged on the door, shouted that he had a right to a share of the money because they were blood, threatened to break windows if Joshua didn't come out and give money, had to call the police. Neighbors changed too. Before they greeted each other, smiled, helped one another. Now they looked sideways enviously. Someone started spreading rumors. Joshua deceived everyone. The meteorite was actually worth 10 million, but he says 2 so he doesn't have to share. He's a greedy liar. One neighbor filed a lawsuit, claimed the meteorite fell not on Joshua's property, but on the boundary between 2 houses, meaning the fine belonged to both and the neighbor had a right to half the money. And this was absurd. The hole in the roof was clear proof the meteorite fell precisely into Joshua's house, but the neighbor didn't back down, hired a lawyer, court hearings began. Joshua had to spend money on his own lawyers, lose time, nerves. Then anonymous threats began. Notes under the door, hey, give up the money or you'll regret it. Night calls with threats to burn down the house, kidnap the children. Someone threw a rock through the window with a note, you don't deserve this money. Joshua stopped sleeping, installed cameras, hired security, but paranoia grew. He couldn't trust anyone, even old friends. Suddenly started asking to borrow large sums, took offense when he refused, or life turned into hell. The situation escalated 6 months after selling the meteorite. A group of men from a neighboring village came to Joshua's house at night. They broke down the gates, burst into the yard, demanded money, shouted that Joshua had stolen their luck, that the meteorite should have fallen on their land, that the heavens had made a mistake. It was nonsense, but they were drunk and aggressive. Joshua locked himself in the house with his family, called the police. Police came, dispersed the crowd, arrested several people, but the next day they were released, and that evening Joshua received a letter. Anonymous printed, we know where your children go to school. We know where your wife works. Give up half the money or they will suffer. This is your last chance. Joshua understood. They weren't joking. He took his family to his wife's relatives in another city. He stayed, trying to deal with the situation. Went to the police, but they said without concrete evidence they couldn't do anything. Advised hiring security or leaving. A week later, someone set fire to his workshop where he worked as a coffin maker. Everything burned to the ground. Neighbors said they saw 2 masked men who fled on motorcycles. Police opened a case but found no one. Joshua realized staying here was deadly dangerous. Court cases continued, lawyers ate up money, threats didn't stop, and now there were arsons. He sold the house, took his family, and left for Jakarta. Thought that in the big city they would dissolve, be forgotten, but rumors followed him. In Jakarta, someone recognized him. The story appeared in local news again. Man with meteorite hiding from revenge. New threats began. Joshua realized he needed to disappear completely. He contacted people who helped change documents, paid big money, got a new name, new passports for the whole family. Children stopped going to school, studied at home. His wife cried every day, didn't understand why their life had turned into such horror. They moved to a small town on another island where no one knew them. Rented a modest house, lived quietly, not attracting attention. Joshua got a simple job under a false name. He kept the money in several banks under different accounts, spent minimally, afraid to attract attention. 2 years passed. Joshua Hudagalung no longer existed. Now he was Rahman Sutardo, a modest mechanic in a small town in Kalimantan. No one knew his past. No one knew about the meteorite, about the millions, about the threats and escape. Children attended local school under new names, got used to not talking about the past. His wife reconciled with the new life, though longing for her homeland didn't let go. They lived modestly, though over $1 million sat in their accounts. The money was cursed. Every time Joshua thought about it, he remembered that night when the stone pierced the roof. If he could go back, he would throw that meteorite into the river. Better to remain a poor coffin maker, but live in peace among family without fear, without threats, without the need to hide. Sometimes at night he had nightmares. The burning workshop, an angry mob at the house, anonymous letters with threats. He woke in cold sweat, checked locks on doors, peered out windows. Paranoia became part of life. He feared someone would find them, that the past would catch up. Once he read in the news the meteorite case was closed, the neighbor who sued was acquitted for lack of evidence. Some of those who threatened were arrested for other crimes. But Joshua felt no relief. He knew he couldn't return. Too many people remembered him. Too much greed and malice he'd seen in the eyes of those who were once friends and family. Money changed everything. Not him, them. Showed true faces, turned kind neighbors into enviers, relatives into extortionists, friends into traitors. Now Joshua lives quietly, works, raises children, tries to forget. The meteorite that brought him wealth took from him his home, name, past. He became a millionaire without the right to be himself. Sometimes he looks at the starry sky and thinks, the heavens gave him this stone, but was it a gift or a curse? He still doesn't know the answer. 5 years have passed since that August night. The meteorite now sits in the private collection of an American billionaire, displayed in a glass case with lighting. The plaque reads, Carbonaceous Chondrite, Sumatra, 2020, rarest specimen, age 4.5 billion years. Visitors photograph themselves next to it, admire it, not knowing the story of the man who found it, not knowing what price he paid for this find. Joshua no longer looks at the sky searching for meteorites. He learned to value simple things: silence, safety, anonymity, wealth that no one sees but that allows peaceful sleep. His story is a reminder. Sometimes luck comes in such a form that it would be better if it never came at all. Sometimes a heavenly gift turns into an earthly curse, and money obtained by chance can cost more than it seems. Not in dollars, in lives, names, destinies. What did you think of this story? What would you have done in Joshua's place? Is wealth worth losing everything else? Write your opinion in the comments.